Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack how the absolutely breathtaking mosaic discoveries of Hatay reveal the very soul of an ancient Roman cultural capital. You know, when we think of ancient Rome, we almost always picture towering marble columns, or maybe gladiators in an arena. But today, we're actually going to look down at the ground, specifically at the floor. We're going to explore how the incredible art beneath the feet of ancient elites tells a vibrant, vivid story of wealth, philosophy, and an absolute mastery of craft.
So let's dive right into this really fascinating question. We're talking about the absolute highest high society of ancient Antioch. This was a place where philosophy, unbelievable artistry, and extreme wealth quite literally paved the floors of people's homes. We're going to discover exactly why the wealthiest citizens of this era chose these incredibly dramatic mythological stories as the backdrop for their lavish dinner parties. Because hey, nothing says enjoy your grapes quite like a mythological beauty contest that ultimately sparked a massive, catastrophic war, right?
To do this, we're taking a spatial and thematic tour today. First, mythological origins. Second, a century of excavations. Third, the villas of Daphne. Fourth, city center and the port. And finally, a peerless artistic heritage.
Starting with Section 1, Mythological Origins. Because if we really want to understand the art of these elites, we absolutely have to understand the stories that they were obsessed with.
Let's talk about the three Graces, or Gratiae, Aglaia, Euphrosyne, and Thalia. In Greek mythology, they're the daughters of Zeus and Uranum. But for the Roman aristocracy living in Antioch, they were so much more than just a bedtime story. They symbolized elegance, joy, beauty, and the sheer abundance of nature. These goddesses were a massive, central motif in the region, and it brilliantly illustrates the deep value the local elites placed on elegance and high-minded philosophy. If you were a cultured Roman in this region, you definitely wanted your guests to know that you aligned yourself with these exact virtues.
But the story gets even more dramatic. Beyond just showing the graces themselves, these mosaics frequently captured the Judgment of Paris. This was the famous high-stakes beauty contest on Mount Olympus between Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite. And this intense mythological prelude to the Trojan War was treated with the highest aesthetic understanding of the era. The elites didn't just want pretty pictures in their homes. They wanted complex, bubbling narrative tension right beneath their feet.
Moving on to Section 2. A century of excavations. Let's look at how this incredible history was actually pulled straight out of the earth.
The sheer scale of this discovery is just mind-blowing. It began way back in the 1930s when an international consortium formed. By the mid-30s, you had pioneering archaeologists like Richard Stilwell, William Campbell, and Jean Lawsus conducting these massive, comprehensive excavations. And the craziest part? This isn't just a piece of ancient history, it's an ongoing discovery. Right up to today, in 2024, modern digs led by Professor Dr. Hatice Pamir at sites like the Nekmi Asfarulasu Museum Hotel are continuously peeling back the layered history of this culture. Just think about the powerhouse global consortium that came together in the 1930s to find these treasures. You had Princeton University, the French National Museum, the Baltimore Museum of Art, and the Harvard Art Museums. By pooling their resources, they unearthed luxury Roman villas across Antioch, Harbiye, and Chevlik, and finally brought these stunning floor mosaics back to the surface for the world to see again.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Villas of Daphne. Now we're going to see how this art builds our understanding of the city's layout, starting with where the absolute wealthiest citizens spent their summers. The ancient city was essentially split into three distinct zones, each serving a very different purpose. First, we have Harbiya, known back then as Daphne, which was the elite summer resort. Then there's Antakya Marquez, the administrative and commercial heart of the city. And finally, Seleucia Pieria, the bustling port city. So the crucial point here is that the architectural structure of ancient Hatay perfectly matches the artifacts found in these three specific districts. The location entirely dictates the kind of art they found.
Let's focus on Daphne first. Daphne was a spectacular district featuring vast libraries, open-air theaters, sacred groves, and these incredibly luxury dining rooms known as tricliniums. Honestly, this was the ancient Roman equivalent of parking a modern billionaire's mega-yacht at an exclusive marina. It was the ultimate center of indulgence and relaxation for the super rich, and because it was an area completely dedicated to leisure and entertainment, this is exactly why the most stunning, intricate examples of the Three Graces and Judgment of Paris mosaics are found right here, in their dining rooms.
Just imagine the scene on the floor beneath you. On one side, you have Paris, the Trojan prince dressed humbly as a shepherd, standing next to the messenger god Hermes.
On the other side, Aphrodite is receiving the golden apple of victory, rendered in just breathtaking detail. Imagine eating an opulent dinner while looking down at this exact scene. It was a brilliant way of projecting your refined taste, your immense wealth, and your deep education in Greek mythology to all of your wealthy guests.
Moving to Section 4, City Center and the Port. Leaving the summer villas behind, we're diving into the bustling public life and the real economic engines of the region.
Welcome to Antakya Merkez, also known as Antakya Adirantes. This was the busy administrative and commercial heart. Think of massive colonnaded streets just packed with people, active agoras, and giant public bath complexes. Here in the city center, the art shifted to match the public space. Archaeologists discovered mosaics showing the classic embracing stance of the three graces. In a huge bath complex, this motif perfectly symbolized youth, joy, and the public aesthetic of the city. It actually connected the everyday citizen to the exact same high culture that the elites were enjoying.
And then we travel down to Seleucia Pieria, or Chevlik. This was the city's strategic port gate. It was home to military and commercial harbors, and incredible engineering marvels like the Titus Tunnel. But what's really fascinating is what they found in the maritime merchant villas here. Down at the port, floor mosaics and marble busts prove that it wasn't just the inherited aristocratic who loved this art. The merchant class, the newly enriched folks making heavy coin from maritime trade, they also heavily invested in mythological high art to showcase their rising status in society.
Finally, Section 5, a peerless artistic heritage. It's time to truly appreciate the physical construction of these masterpieces, many of which are now beautifully housed in the Hatay Archaeology Museum.
Billions! I just want you to sit with that number for a second. That is the mind-boggling number of tiny natural stones, known as tesserae, used to construct these floors across the region. We're talking about absolutely unimaginable hours of human labor sorting and setting tiny individual pieces of rock entirely by hand.
And they definitely weren't just throwing these stones together at random. They used microscopic stones, meticulously arranged to create macro-scale anatomical depth. We are talking about capturing the delicate folds of fabric, or the complex facial expressions of ambition, pride, and elegance on the faces of gods and mortals. This brilliantly illustrates how Hatay's mosaic workshops weren't just highly skilled, they were unequivocally among the absolute most competent art centers in the entire Roman Empire, no question.
But bringing these pieces back into the light? Yeah, it's no easy task. It requires a rigid, painstakingly slow process. First, you have the careful brushing of the topsoil. Next, the meticulous spatula work to gently reveal the tesserae without dislodging a single stone. And finally, the delicate preservation and display at the Hatay Archaeology Museum. Thanks to the incredibly patient work of generations of archaeologists, these artifacts survive today to tell a story that is so much bigger than just wealth and luxury.
It really brings to mind a powerful realization. Antakya was not just a center of trade and politics. It was a global capital of mythology, philosophy, and high art. What you should take away from this explainer is that these mosaics were the ultimate flex of a highly educated, deeply philosophical society. It wasn't just about having a nice floor. It was about living out the intellectual ideals of the ancient world every single day.
Which leaves us with one final, thrilling thought. As excavations continue today in modern Hatay, it really makes you wonder, what other legendary stories of ancient high society are still buried right beneath the soil, simply waiting for an archaeologist's brush to finally reveal them? What breathtaking dining room floor might we uncover next? Thank you so much for exploring the magnificent mosaics of ancient Hatay with me today. Stay curious and keep digging into the past.